Good evening and welcome to the 14th annual dinner presentation of the Manhattan Institute's Social Entrepreneurship Awards. I'm Howard Husock. I'm Vice President for Policy Research at the Institute and Director of our Social Entrepreneurship Initiative. This is the evening each year when the Institute, which usually works in the public policy area, moves into a different dimension, I'm tempted to say. When we recognize those who have decided, in the face of the social problems that we see in our country, that they are the ones who should themselves do something about them, and that they have a new and better idea about how to do that. All of them are founders and leaders of new organizations that offer new models for teaching and indeed uplifting those in need. At a time when public doubt about the effectiveness of our government is at a high, they remind us that there are many sources of good ideas in America, especially those that come from our vibrant civil society. All have relied crucially on private philanthropy to fuel their work, and all have been nominated by private philanthropic donors from around the United States of America. Tonight you'll see that although we did not set out to find one specific type of program or one kind of organization only, all of our winners turned out to be united in responding to what so many Americans view as our top domestic problem, the quality of education and the future of our young people. As always, we'll be presenting two types of awards tonight. The $25,000 Richard Cornell Awards, named for the man who coined the very term independent sector, for promising new organizations, and the $100,000 William E. Simon Prize for lifetime achievement in social entrepreneurship. I'd like to thank a number of people and organizations represented here tonight who make this evening and this program possible. First, from the J.M. Kaplan Fund, Betsy Davidson. Betsy, are you here? Okay. From the William E. Simon Foundation, board members Amy Simon Bloom and Mary Simon Streep, President James Pearson, staff members Amy Allred, Sarah Faye Snyder, Karen Keenan, and Janice Riddell. And from the O'Neill Family Foundation, Nick and Patricia O'Neill. Let's have a big hand for all of our supporters. We'll be back following dinner to introduce our award winners. For now, please enjoy your meal. Thank you so much. Good evening once again. As I said earlier, we do not in this award competition set out to look for certain types of organizations or certain types of purposes. We cast our net widely to foundations and donors across the country. Their nominations are screened by our outstanding committee of judges, and no winner can be selected without an actual site visit either by myself or my longtime colleague in this project, Cheryl Keller. But though we don't set out to find any one type of organization, sometimes themes emerge, themes which reflect the concerns of our nation and the willingness and capacity of individual citizens to address them. That's how it worked out this year with education. You'll see that all of our winners address a wide variety of aspects of education: the need for serious after-school programs, new models for high school teaching, new ways of reaching students over the summer, and new ways of using technology to reach millions. And you'll see the potential for new technology can reach around the world. I'm pleased to note that, in part because of who our winners are this year, we have a great many representatives of the important school reform movement we're fortunate to have here in New York with us tonight, including representatives of the Gilder and Ehrmann Institute for American History, the New York City Charter School Center, Educators for Excellence, the Relay Graduate School of Education, and the CUNY Institute for Education Policy. Please give them all a hand for the great work they're doing. All of our winners are described in your program. And now it's my pleasure to begin to introduce them to you in person. Our first winner of the Richard Cornell Prize comes to us from the southeastern corner of the state of Ohio, from an area they call Appalachian Ohio, where there's coal and lately natural gas, but also generations of poverty, drug problems, kids raised in troubled homes, and public schools that are falling short. When retirement and family life led Alice Ely Chapman to Marietta, Ohio, she saw those problems and set out to do something through the Ely Chapman Education Foundation, which she founded. Today, inside a former high school building whose renovation her foundation helped to finance, once abandoned classrooms buzz with kids getting after-school help with homework, guidance about life choices, and most of all, being taught how to study and learn. Along with student teachers from the local college, Alice is there herself, only about 60 hours a week, though. Everyone in Marietta seems to have a famous Alice Chapman story. Here's mine. When she asked a young girl where her homework assignment was, she was told by the girl that the teacher had failed to hand out the homework that day. Alice's response, "Why didn't you ask the teacher for it?" Some people call that personal responsibility and work ethic, and Alice Chapman knows how to teach both. She's led legions of kids to the high school honor roll, and in the process, she's helped them on the path toward successful adulthood. Ladies and gentlemen, originally from New Haven, Connecticut, now from Marietta, Ohio, nominated by Sandra Kolakevich and the Marietta Community Foundation, Alice Ely Chapman.
Well, I came up here without my glasses. All right. I came up here without my glasses. Sorry about that. They're on the table. They're on the table. I always start all my speeches with a story, so I'm going to do the same thing with this group here. Mrs. C, what comes after 29? I'll be with you in a minute, Sally. I'm helping Johnny with his reading. But Mrs. C, what comes after 29? I said I'll be with you in a minute. I'm trying to teach you some patience, Sally. But Mrs. C, I really don't know what comes after 29. Whoops, here they are. I don't know where my glasses are. I suddenly realized what this third grade child was asking me. She really did not know what came after 29. I had given her a page of math paper to fill out, 10 blocks across, 10 blocks down, to write the numbers from 1 to 100. She had never counted to 100 in her life. When I realized this, I immediately gave her another paper to do that I knew she could do, and I worked with her privately. And by Christmas time, this happened in September, by Christmas time she was counting to 100 fluently, doing simple addition. By May, she was doing her multiplication tables and understanding how math patterns worked. Nobody had bothered to tell this child who was designated developmentally handicapped. And her mother had even, basically, as far as I was concerned, declared her as somebody who would never get anywhere because she wasn't smart enough to know how to cross the parking lot at Walmart because she didn't know to look both ways. Nobody had taught her that. This is when I realized we needed help. Citizens of Marietta needed help. The children of Marietta needed help. They didn't need a private school. They needed help for after school, for all these children who fall through the cracks, who are quiet and sit in the back of the room, and nobody realizes this child cannot spell a word because the child is a kinesthetic learner, which means he has to act out the word to spell it. Or this child cannot count to 100, even though she's in third grade. So I proceeded to start, well, I had already started the foundation, but I was only working with just an elementary school program. And I realized then that I had to have a broader focus. So I started in 1999 with my board president, who's been my president since 1999, Hunt Brawley, who's here with me tonight, and a small group of people. And we started with one program, 12 children, 2 teachers and myself, and 1 full-time maintenance person. Now, 15 years later, I average about 70 children a day coming through the doors, going to things like the after-school elementary school program, which is called the Sunshine Learning Station. Sunshine is an acronym for the School for Unusual Needs students, offering a healthy, individualized, nurturing education. An acronym, I came up for that because I wanted to target every child that has unusual needs, and those children who are working well above grade level, as well as those who are working well above grade level, still need help. They need mentors. I also have children coming in for karate, for performing arts, where they actually write their own plays and put them on. I have a program for talented and gifted children. I have Boy Scouts. Our summer camp is very large. We run 70 children a day at summer camp, and it's all hands-on learning in the summer. So this is what I do at Ely Chapman. I am very honored to receive this gift. Now come the glasses. I feel that students need a place where they could work at their own pace and yet be given the opportunity to succeed, where they were taught two main rules: respect. It's amazing how many times when the students come before me, and I say to them, because I have to interview, according to state law, every child that comes into the program, and I say to them, who's the first person you should respect? You? No. The teachers? No. They don't realize that the first person they should respect is themselves. Teaching self-respect means the child will then not misbehave as often as normal and will learn to respect others in a much better way. Then I teach them responsibility. As Howard told you the story about the girl with the homework. This work means responsibility for themselves first. I do this little dance about being responsible for their hands and feet so they're not tripping people. But this is the whole purpose of what Ely Chapman does, is to teach these children to be successful. And to go back to my first little girl, she went into our theater program, and after the second play she was in, she jumped off the stage and shouted out to me, "Mrs. C, I can do it, I can do it, I can." This girl graduated this past spring from our local Washington County Career Center with a full high school diploma and is now working as a nurse's aide in the local hospital, working towards a nursing degree. She can do it. She is now a tax-paying citizen of our community. This is what I want Ely Chapman to do for all of our students. And I could tell you thousands of success stories, but I won't. I do want to thank some people that are here with me tonight. Hunt Brawley is my board president. He's been my board president since the beginning. We do not feel the board should turn over. We want to have a very active board who comes out, participates in all our activities. So I keep active people. If they volunteer for me, by gosh, I keep them, don't worry. And Pam Parr, who is my board secretary, who came on as the board when her granddaughter joined my program because the daughter was suffering from a home life situation that required that she needed the extra help. That girl has come back and actually taught in our summer camp. I also want to thank my mother, who brought me up to believe that the only thing we have to give our children is their education. Everything else can be destroyed by a fire or flood. And she also taught me and had me know by heart the motto that Ely Chapman runs off, which is the Edward Hale's motto: look up and not down, look forward and not back, look out and not in, and lend a hand. Ely Chapman is lending a hand to the children that it serves by allowing them to become tax-paying citizens, by allowing them to become good participating members of the community. And I want to thank the foundation, the Manhattan Institute, for honoring me, and I feel very humbled by this award. I didn't set out to get any awards, I set out to help children, but I am honored by this award, and I thank you very much.
Edward Everett Hale, I love that. That is just greatest. Our second Cornell Prize winner can be said to be part of the robust school reform movement, as I said before, we're so fortunate to have here in New York City. It's a movement that takes many forms, whether charter schools or new forms of teacher training. But in the Bronx and in Washington Heights, Nick Ehrmann and the organization he calls Blue Engine are trying out new and successful ways to approach a very important educational activity, teaching. Why, he asked, in the years following his own time at Teach for America and a doctoral program at Princeton, should there be only one teacher in the classroom? Could disadvantaged kids especially improve their achievement in a new kind of classroom, one with a series of tutors in a series of subjects? Today, Blue Engine recruits those kind of tutors from all around the United States to work there in the Bronx and Washington Heights in these new concept classrooms in some of the city's poorest neighborhoods, and assiduously tracks the results of their work in a way that's met the standards of one of the country's most demanding donors, the Robin Hood Foundation. 4 years after its founding, at the invitation of school principals, this new teaching model is reaching 1,200 students in 6 high schools with the help of 56 teaching assistants chosen from among more than 600 applicants. That's to teach in the Bronx. They focus on results, though, and at Blue Engine, and to date, it's increased the number of its students at college-ready levels on the New York Regents exam by 61%, enough to get the attention of schools around the country looking for new and effective approaches, and colleges looking for good students, too. Ladies and gentlemen, originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, now from right here in New York, nominated by 2008 William E. Simon Prize winner George Macdonald of the Doe Fund, here's Blue Engine founder Nick Ehrmann.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute privilege to be here. I think watching you, Alice, it just reminds me of watching people with fire in their eyes is such a privilege, and that people come from all walks of life, but there's one constant among entrepreneurs, and it's that you have fire in your eyes, and you have so much care in your heart for the work that you do. It's a privilege to be surrounded by fellow award winners. I want to start by thanking you, Howard, the committee, George, Jason. My wife is here tonight along with the Blue Engine family, and it's really a privilege to wake up every morning and call this work. Blue Engine believes that we sell students on a dream of college in this country without preparing them to succeed once they get there. And for those of you who aren't aware, remediation rates in higher education represent just an epidemic of lost talent. Only 8 of every 100 low-income students who start college finish within 6 years. Here in New York City, in our backyard, not even a third of graduating seniors are prepared for the rigors of college-level work. And this is frankly more of a systemic failure than it is a failure of any one of those young people. And so we're dedicated to using high-dose tutors, a new instructional model where we think about linking in-school preparation during the regular school day and gateway skills, high schools, with a 4-year model that over time compounds its effects in 2 ways. You start to see greater numbers of students engaging in their coursework because they sit a foot away from a tutor every single day. And second, those tutors go on to become that school and our network's future teachers. And they've had an experience over 2 or 3 years that really radically differently prepares them for the challenges of those first years. I want to tell you a quick story. About a year ago, actually, Annie, I think it was this month, a year ago, we have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at home, boys both, and we needed a break. And we drove up to southern Vermont and stayed in this really beautiful bed and breakfast in the sticks. And I remember Annie was asleep, and I was wandering around. You know, these lobbies are nice, and you sort of like kick around. And I saw this article written by Jeff Madrick in a magazine, Sitting Open, and the words caught my attention. It said, "Problem number 1." And you know those pop-out quotes right in the middle? This was the pop-out quote from the article. Quote, "The active ingredients that are necessary to construct a strong architecture of brain circuitry are abundant, safe opportunities to learn and active reciprocal relationships with caring adults." And before you think, you'd probably think this is from a sociology journal. I got a PhD in sociology, or sort of some left-leaning, really idealistic, liberal magazine. It was actually drawn from a medical journal about the environmental conditions necessary to combat poverty. And as I thought about the award winners tonight, Alice and Saul, Andrew, Beth, it's the single thread, that quote, that runs through all of our work. We see a day where human capital is structured in schools in a much smarter way. And part of that is about recognizing the talents of giving our nation's college graduates new on-ramps into the teaching profession. It's an absolute privilege to be able to call your attention to 6 of our Blue Engine teaching assistants jointly enrolled in the Relay School of Education who've come from all around the United States to join this movement. Please join me in giving them a round of applause. The last thing I'll say is, if you believe like we do that the seeds of brilliance are evenly distributed, but that opportunities are not, investing in entrepreneurs and the power of this work, both in this city and beyond, is one of the best strategies that we can have to solving these problems. Thank you very much.
As important as classroom learning is, we know that strong personal interests, passions, and the chance to pursue them can change one's life. That's something that our next Cornell Award winner, Beth Schmidt, kept in mind when she was teaching high school English in South Central Los Angeles. She remembered her own teenage years in Connecticut as a serious figure skater and the joy and the discipline that time on the ice brought to her. And so she asked her students one day, they'd been indifferent in completing their assignments, if they had interests of their own that they wished they could pursue, maybe over the summer. She found that she unleashed in them a wave of enthusiasm. That one homework assignment was turned in almost universally, and it led Beth to raise money to send her students to the summer programs that they'd mentioned in criminal justice, stem cell research. It led her to start the organization for which we're recognizing her tonight. Wishbone, she calls it. It provides the link between summer programs and everything from filmmaking to aviation for students whose own families might not be familiar with those programs and definitely would not be able to afford them. And as you might expect from a San Francisco social entrepreneur, Beth had some social networking pioneer help, and she's created a very robust website that makes possible crowdfunding for individual students' summer dreams. It's a long way from Beth's first fundraising method, getting sponsors for her own run at the Los Angeles Marathon, which is not to say she still doesn't visit in person a great many university summer programs and a great many other programs that she links her Wishbone kids to. She signed up an all-star group of those summer programs: Stanford's Digital Media Lab, Georgetown's Sports Management Institute, NYU's Visual Arts Academy, and the Summer Military Academy program at West Point. Ladies and gentlemen, nominated by Michael Polanski of Parker Networks, as in Sean Parker, the founder of Wishbone from San Francisco, California, Beth Schmidt.
Thank you so much for that generous introduction. Well, thank you for having me here. As Howard mentioned, when I was young in high school, I had a lot of opportunity growing up in education, but the thing that actually got me out of bed in the morning and got me really excited about life was figure skating. I was a competitive figure skater, and figure skating was the thing that actually taught me time management, it taught me dedication, and it made me feel confident. And it was also the thing that really made me realize what passion, true passion, felt like. And so fast forward a number of years, I joined Teach for America, similar to Nick, and I found myself teaching 10th grade English at Locke High School in South Central Los Angeles in Watts. And it was interesting, my very first year of teaching, I had about 170 students, and I assigned our very first research paper. And under 10% of students turned this paper in, so about 16. So I took a step back and thought about why this was not a successful paper. Why wasn't this a successful assignment? And I realized it lacked a lot of relevance for students. And I believed that students would actually write this paper if they could connect the dots on why it mattered in their lives. So I changed the assignment. I took a step back and said, okay, the new paper is just tell me about a passion you have, And then the research component is tell me how you would pursue that passion after school or in the summer. So about 20 papers started with the sentence, no one has ever asked me what my passion is, first of all. But what was more interesting about this is 90% of the class turned it in. So I knew right away that I had hit on something, that I had hit on these passions that students in the 10th grade knew very well what they cared about. So I decided to run a little experiment, and I ran a marathon to raise $12,000. And I was able to afford to send 7 students to the programs they had written about in their papers. So like Howard mentioned, some wanted to attend a film academy at Universal Studios. Others wanted to attend a mock trial institute at UCLA. Some went to the Redondo School of Music to learn how to play the guitar. And the common thread between all of these passions was that students had had them for a very long time and never had the opportunity to pursue them. And so now in 2014, we funded over 250 students to pursue their passions. Luckily, I'm no longer fundraising through running marathons because it's not sustainable. So we've changed course on that a little bit. But I'm really proud to introduce 2 people tonight, and I'd love for them to stand up. 2 Wishbone students who we're really proud of. Kayla, go ahead and stand up. Kayla is a Wishbone student. She's joining us from Brooklyn, and she attended Parsons to study fashion design. And she's now attending Baruch College, where she's decided to major in business because she'd like to work on some business in fashion. And then we have Alondra, who's also with us tonight. Alondra's from the Bronx, and she went to Brooklyn Ballet. She had been dancing since she was 3, and she stopped for about 7 years. And we were able to connect her back to dancing, back to her passion through Brooklyn Ballet. So we're really proud to have them here tonight, and thank you all for honoring Wishbone.
Our next Cornell Prize winner is focused, in contrast to our other winners, on some of the most successful students in America, new graduates of our leading colleges and universities. But Andrew Yang, like many other Americans, has been concerned that we may not be making the best use of our best and brightest, and that they might not themselves be finding satisfying careers. Not everyone, he likes to point out, is cut out for a career in law, finance, or consulting. And so, after a successful legal and corporate career of his own, Andrew, 3 years ago, started what he calls Venture for America, to recruit top college graduates to try careers in business, specifically in entrepreneurial startup businesses in some of our most distressed cities, Detroit, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and 9 others. Today, there are more than 20 Venture for America fellows in Detroit alone, and more than 200 in startup businesses around the country. Many have wound up being ultimately hired by those businesses where they had started as fellows and staying in cities they might never have even visited otherwise. Andrew's getting top talent to businesses that need it, human capital that cities have long been losing, and he's even selling the virtues of capitalism on America's college campuses. That alone makes him a very brave man. Ladies and gentlemen, nominated by Nathan Kurtz of the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, please join me in welcoming the founder of Venture for America, Andrew Yang.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you for this award. So when I heard I won this award, I had an important question, which was, is there money involved? And when I heard yes, I got very, very happy and excited. So first, it's a real honor to be mentioned in the same breath as Alice and Nick and Beth and Sal. I mean, Sal's a beast. So, you know, I mean, he's getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, and he's younger than I am. So, but I feel a little bit, you know, sort of like I mean, Howard summed it up. And first, let me thank Howard. He took the trip to Detroit and he met with some of the fellows that were there, and in his words, the fellows had gone native, which in his mind was a good thing, and in our mind it's a good thing too. But we have 40 fellows in Detroit, thanks to some of Venture for America's board members, who I want to thank: Cameron Brighton, our first chairperson, Cy, who's succeeding him next year, Marty Halpfinger, and also my wife Evelyn, without whom I'm sure Venture for America would not exist. So Howard referenced my career. I graduated from Brown in the mid-90s, didn't know what to do, so I went to law school, which is what you did if you didn't know what to do. And I found law school clarified very little, at least for me, and so I became a corporate attorney in New York. And I said, okay, that's the job you get. And then I found, it wasn't necessarily a great fit or vice versa, and so I left to start an ill-fated.com in the first bubble. And I found that starting a business is way harder than school. Like, I was an okay student, but my business didn't do so well. I was like, oh, so this is why entrepreneurship, isn't something everyone does, because it's super hard. So the question then is, like, what do you do to try and train someone to become a better entrepreneur? So I'm going to submit to you all, let's say you could go back in time and there was like 26-year-old Andrew, there's a head in his hands being like, oh man, like I just lost these investors this money. What do I do next? So let's say you're channeling my parents at that point. Like someone like shout out some advice. Like what does 26-year-old Andrew do next? Anyone? And let's say that I wanted to be an entrepreneur because that's what I wanted to do, and that's accurate. So what's the next move? Someone said apprentice, which is right. So I tried to find a more experienced entrepreneur than myself, which is everyone, and then I like knelt and was like, please accept my sword, and then someone said, rise, my son, and like tapped me on the shoulder. So I worked as a sidekick entrepreneur for, VP of something or other was my title. And I mean, I had a better title than that. It was like, it was legit. It was like VP Business Development. At a healthcare software company, and then I became CEO of an education company that taught people how to do well in the GMAT, for those who went to business school. And we grew to become #1 in the US. I personally taught the analyst classes at Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, how to do well on this test to get a business school. So we became successful, and then we were acquired by the Washington Post Kaplan division in 2009. And so I was looking back in the last decade of my career, and I thought to myself, if I learned how to be an entrepreneur, or at least learn how better to be an entrepreneur by working with someone stronger than myself, why don't we do that across the country for people who would want that experience and exposure, which is a lot of people, as it turns out, because there are like thousands of young people that want to learn, just like young Andrew did, how to build a business. So what we do is we match them with existing entrepreneurs in Detroit, New Orleans, Cleveland, Baltimore, et cetera. And I'm happy to say they're off to an incredible start. How many of you think that business is a force for good in our society? So yes, business is good. And it's something that people experience for themselves. I ran a company that had over 100 employees, and I saw the opportunities transform the people that are involved in that business. So, having a job that's fulfilling, that enables you to make better economic choices and take individual responsibility, that's what people want, and that's what we can give them if we get our talent working in that direction. And so the big question is, how do you build businesses around the country? And I've learned one thing in the last 3 years, and it's that if you want to build businesses around the country, you have to create and cultivate and encourage the people that will build and grow those businesses. And I'm happy to say we have one such person with us tonight, Barry Conrad. Barry, if you could stand up. So Barry spent the last 2 years growing small businesses in Las Vegas and then moved to Providence, Rhode Island, which has an unemployment rate of about 10%. And now he's a manager at Swipely, which has grown from 35 to 130 employees in the last 2 years. So let's give Barry a round of applause. So there are thousands of young people across the country that want the same sort of experience as Barry. And Barry's a future CEO. If you have a chance to talk to him a little bit later, like Barry's going to run a company. I would put money on it, and I will put money on it, Barry. So you can take me up on that. And so the question is, how do we get more people to walk that same road? What we need to do is we need to give them a genuine choice. Right now, we're giving them 6 choices, more or less, or we're giving them choices, and we're saying what we really want you to do is this thing I'm hiding behind my back. It's like, we'll give you $100,000 in federal loans to go to law school, even though obviously like there's at this point a little bit of a surplus in terms of law school graduates. That's not me, that's Bloomberg Business Week. Bloomberg Business Week says 176,000 underemployed or unemployed law school graduates by 2020. And all of that's being federally funded. So we're giving them certain choices, and then we're saying, hey, the thing we want you to do, which is to build businesses, create opportunities for yourself and others, let's hide that and let's make that super hard. What we have to do is we just have to give them a genuine choice, and they will walk that path and make us proud. So thank you very much for this award. And also, I'm the guy responsible for this book that was on your chair, so please take it with you, because if you don't, it'll make me sad when I see a bunch of copies here at the end of the night. So thank you all very much.
Don't most people, when they have a career-changing mind, say, let's start an organization that touches kids across the country? Most people do that, right? He did. Before we move on to the presentation of the William E. Simon Prize for Lifetime Achievement in Social Entrepreneurship, I'd like to recognize a number of our past winners who are with us tonight. First, we have two great New Yorkers who are both past winners of the Simon Prize itself. George Macdonald, who I mentioned earlier, as a nominator. George Macdonald, the founder, CEO of the Doe Fund Ready, Willing, and Able program. George Macdonald. And everybody who ice skates in Bryant Park, this is the man you have to thank, the president of the Bryant Park Restoration Corporation, Dan Biederman. Also with us, Cornell Prize winners, Jim Hunter and Eloise Samuels of the New Jersey Orators, who do so much to help minority youth with the speaking and presentation skills they need for success. The leader of one of the country's great prisoner reentry programs with a sterling record of helping ex-offenders from Rikers Island make their way in the world, Mark Goldsmith of Getting Out and Staying Out. And from Glamour Gals, now with chapters around the country that bring together young women in high school with women in nursing homes, and they find out they can learn a lot from each other, Mary Panisi of Glamour Gals. And Vi and Noelle Higginson of Harlem Mama Foundation for the Arts Gospel for Teens program, preserving one of the greatest African-American musical art forms, passing it on to a new generation, Vi and Noelle. And now, before the presentation of our evening's final award, the $100,000 William E. Simon Prize for Lifetime Achievement, it's my privilege to ask to the stage to recall the man for whom the award is named and to tell us about his legacy, Jim Pearson, president of the William E. Simon Foundation.
Well, thank you, Howard, and thank you, everyone. This is, as Bill Simon would have said, a feel-good evening. And it's great to hear from all these awardees. Alice, it's very important to have your glasses. I brought mine up. When you reach a certain age, you have to remember that. And where's Andrew? Andrew, are you sure you're in the right line of work? I think you could take that show on the road and do very well with it. So, but congratulations to all the honorees. On behalf of the Simon Foundation, we have two of our trustees here today. Amy Simon Bloom is down here. Mary Streep Simon is here as well. And we have our staff members that Howard has also recognized. They all work very hard on this, and we really appreciate the hard work of the Manhattan Institute, Howard, Larry, and your staff, and making this such a success. So, Bill Simon, many people in this room, some of the people in this room remember Bill. It's a dwindling list, I think. He died 14 years ago. Seems hard to believe. Those of us who knew him miss him still. In addition to his daughters, there are several people in the room who remember him. I saw Bill Kearns back there, Sissy Hicks is back there, John Pinto, Donna DeVerona back there, all pals of Bill Simon. And thank you for being here this evening. So Bill was a fantastic guy, a high-energy man, ran through life at a very fast pace, got a lot done, had a big heart. He had manifold careers, family, faith, successful investor and businessman, politics, public servant, best-selling author, president of the Olin Foundation, founder of his own foundation. I'm sure I'm missing some things. Bill never sat still. No one could keep up with him, least of all me. I gave up a long time ago, and as I said, he has a great family. It's been a privilege for me to know his family and to be friends with his family, and it's really been a great honor for my life. Bill set up his foundation based on the adage of Andrew Carnegie, to help people help themselves. And these awards, the Simon Awards, really exemplify Bill's spirit. He was very instrumental in setting this up. Bill was a great businessman, but he understood that markets and business can't accomplish everything. And God knows Bill was skeptical of what government could do. And in that space between markets and government, there's a vast range of opportunities for social entrepreneurs and philanthropists to band together to meet social needs. All of the awardees tonight embrace this vision of social invention, social entrepreneurship to fill social needs. Sal Khan certainly has applied this to the world of education with enormous success and influence. I think Sal said tonight he reaches 100 million students a year. That's a tremendous thing, and there's a great future. This is precisely the kind of thing that Bill Simon wanted to recognize tonight. We're delighted to partner with the Manhattan Institute. Manhattan Institute is a beacon for freedom and free enterprise and limited government and progress in New York and around the country, and we think at the Simon Foundation this is a perfect partnership. So again, congratulations to all of the honorees, and thank you, Howard and Larry. Thank you.
As Andrew said earlier, lifetime achievement may seem like a premature accolade for the young man whom you're about to meet, Sal Khan, but it's a view shared by many, including Bill Gates and Eric Schmidt, whose foundations played some of the key roles in supporting his work and bringing it to scale, by the College Board, which has decided that it will partner with the man who's been called teacher to the world. The term disruptive innovation has been applied mainly to the world of for-profit business, but Sal Khan and Khan Academy have demonstrated that it can also be brought to education. As was made clear, and maybe we can bring down the lights here for a second. As was made clear by this segment, boy, my words really have power here.
Take a moment and remember your favorite teacher.
60 minutes.
Now imagine that teacher could reach not 30 kids in a classroom, but millions of students all over the world. That's exactly what Sal Khan is doing on his website, Khan Academy. With digital lessons and simple exercises, he's determined to transform how we learn at every level. One of his most famous pupils, Bill Gates, says Khan, this teacher to the world, is giving us all a glimpse of the future of education. It all started in 2004, when Sal Khan was working as a hedge fund analyst in Boston, and his cousin Nadia, a 7th grader in New Orleans, was struggling with algebra. He agreed to tutor her remotely and wound up posting lessons on YouTube. They helped Nadia, but then an odd thing happened. Total strangers started using them too.
I started getting feedback like, you know, my child has dyslexia and this is the only thing that's getting into him. I got letters from people saying, you know, we're praying for you and your family. That's pretty heady stuff. You know, people don't say that type of stuff to a hedge fund analyst normally.
So in 2009, Khan quit his job and, working from a desk set up in his closet, devoted himself full-time to Khan Academy. It's a non-profit with a simple but audacious mission: to provide a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. If that goal sounds far-fetched for a guy working in his closet, consider what happened next.
There's a website that I've just been using with my kids recently called Khan Academy, K-H-A-N. Just one guy doing some unbelievable 15-minute tutorials.
I was like, those videos for Nadia, not Bill Gates. I have to take a second look at some of this stuff.
That's right. Bill Gates, one of the smartest and richest men in the world, was using Sal Khan's free videos to teach his own kids. That was just 2 years ago. Today, with the help of more than $15 million in funding, much of it from the Gates Foundation and Google,
so if we get rid of the percent sign, we move the decimal over.
He's amassed a library of math lectures.
12 plus 4 is 16.
Starting with basic addition and building all the way through advanced calculus.
We're taking the limit as delta x approaches 0. It's the exact same thing.
But he's not just a math whiz. He has this uncanny ability to break down even the most complicated subjects, including physics, biology, astronomy, history, medicine. In just a couple of years, he's gone from having a few hundred pupils to more than 4 million every month.
Has it sunk in to you that you are probably the most watched teacher in the world now?
Yeah, I try not to say things like that to myself. You don't want to think about it too much because it can, I think, paralyze you a little bit.
Khan has been able to hire, with competitive salaries, some of the most talented engineers and designers in the country. The Khan Academy office has the intense vibe of a Silicon Valley startup. The team is working to create software they hope will transform how math is taught in American classrooms. Khan Academy has created a dashboard so teachers like Courtney Cadwell can monitor each student's progress.
So right now they're all working on things and you can see that real time.
Yes.
So as you sit here and look at the dashboard, you see how the students are doing individually, you see how they're doing as a whole class,
Yep.
and you can figure out who you need to help.
Exactly. And here I can track their progress over time. I can see who's rushing ahead, who's lagging behind. I can see if they begin to stagnate.
A blue bar indicates a student knows a concept. Orange, they're still working on it. But if a red bar pops up,
Is kind of the red flag to tell me, hey, it's time to step in and intervene. And I can see
Oh, so you can see not only that it's red, but specifically what the
what
problem
they
is.
missed, and you can see the number of seconds they spent on each problem.
Eric Schmidt, the pioneering chairman of Google, says he's seen a lot of failed attempts to integrate technology into education, but says what Sal Khan is doing is different.
Many people think they're doing something new, but they're not really changing the approach. Whereas with Saul, he said, what we're going to do is not only are we going to make these interesting 10-minute videos, but we're going to measure whether it works or not.
He was the guy to sort of make this happen. Why do you think it was him and not some person who was an educator or who had a background in this area?
Innovation never comes from the established institutions. It's always a graduate student or a crazy person or somebody with a great vision. Saul is that person in education, in my view.
But no matter how big or how successful Khan Academy gets, Sal Khan promises he'll never put a price tag on it.
The for-profits have to mold themselves much more to the education establishment than we do. As a not-for-profit, we're just like, what's our mission? To educate children as well as possible. I've said it enough times, and it's in our mission statement, a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, now from Mountain View, California, please join me in welcoming the founder of Khan Academy, Sal Khan.
It's a real honor to be here on so many levels, and especially because so many people were involved. And actually just watching that 60 Minutes piece was actually from a couple of years ago. It reminded me actually that last scene where me and Sanjay Gupta are walking down the street. It was actually a funny story. A young man walked up to Sanjay Gupta and said, "Sal Khan, Khan Academy." I said, "No, I'm right here." Yeah, he was embarrassed, but it was touching. Sanjay's a pretty handsome man, so I thought it was flattering. But as you know, as what you saw in the 60 Minutes piece, this is kind of a strange, surreal adventure for myself, and it's now much more than just myself. It's the whole team of full-time employees at Khan Academy. We're now a team of 75 people. We have actually we have thousands of volunteers all over the planet. And you know, just to give a little more texture on how kind of happenstance, or at least happenstance it feels to me. You know, back in those early days, as you saw in the piece, it started with me tutoring my cousin. She was having trouble with unit conversion at her middle school, and she was being placed into a slow math track. And just by doing that one-on-one tutoring, I think this is a consistent theme that we're seeing amongst all the winners today. I saw a young woman who thought that she was just horrible at math and that the system thought that she was horrible at math, go on to not just learn unit conversion. This was me just working with her half an hour every day after school for her, after work for me, but then catch up with her class and then start to actually pick up a little bit of early algebra and get ahead of her class. And you know, when I saw that happen, I became what I call a tiger cousin. And I called up her school and I said, you know, I really think Nadia Ehrmann should retake that placement exam from last year. They said, who are you? I said, I'm her cousin. But I saw with Nadia just what could happen. And you know, she later on just became an incredibly strong math student and also an incredible writer that I had absolutely nothing to do with. But then I started working with her younger brothers, and you know, frankly, over the next several years, this was back in 2004, word got around the family that free tutoring was going on. And I started working with, it was about 10 or 15 cousins, family, friends around the country. And it was just fun for me. It was just satisfying. I was able to revisit all of this subject matter that I had a passion for, that I really enjoyed. And you know, as a friend, and actually he should be near the top of the list for people I should thank, I had started writing kind of this basic software for my cousins to practice what they were doing and for me to see what they were working on. And I was showing this to a friend at a dinner party. His name's Zuli Ramzan. And he said, well, you know, this is all great, Sal, but how are you scaling up your actual lessons? And I told him it's actually a lot harder. You know, even what I was able to do one-on-one with Nadia, it's harder when there's 5 or 6 people on the phone, or you know, sometimes I'm covering something with one cousin and then I have to cover it again the next week with another cousin. And he said, well, you know, I have an idea. Why don't you make your lessons as videos and upload them onto YouTube? And I immediately told him, that's a horrible idea. YouTube is for cats playing piano. It is not for serious mathematics. But I went home that weekend, got over the idea that it wasn't my idea, and you know, as what the 60 Minutes piece showed, I put it out there for my cousins. I started telling them, hey, so we make our sessions more productive. You could watch these ahead of time. We could dig deeper over the phone. After a few weeks of that, I asked them what they thought, and they famously and backhandedly told me that they liked me better on YouTube than in person. And so, taking that as positive feedback, and it was interesting because what they weren't saying is that they didn't appreciate me. And I think this goes back to what all of the winners were saying. I mean, the benefit of having the one-on-one time with the human, someone who takes interest, someone who's mentoring you. But what they were saying is, the first time that you're learning something, it's really valuable to do it at your own time, at your own pace, to not have any judgment. Even if you have a well-intentioned cousin, it's stressful for them when they say, hey, do you get it? And you feel pressure to say yes. If you're in 9th grade and you're a little bit confused about your 4th grade arithmetic, it's embarrassing to admit that, but now you could get it at your own time and pace. And so I put it out there, and it wasn't many weeks before I realized that people who were not my cousins were watching. And you know, as in the piece, it was just letters started to come in. Actually, the early letters were just, you know, simple thank yous or comments on YouTube. And I don't know how much, and you know, that felt like a big deal. I don't know how much time you all spend on YouTube. Most of the comments are not thank you. They're a little bit edgier. But then, you know, some of what was talked about, you know, I started getting letters from parents, from people retiring from the military who wanted to go back to college, people who thought they were, you know, never could do well in math and now they were engineering majors. And so that just kept happening all the way to 2009. About several 100,000 people were using Khan Academy at that point. And, you know, I give a lot of credit to my wife, who's another kind of near the top of the list person, or if not the top of the list to thank, where she encouraged me. It had already been set up as a not-for-profit, but, you know, there's something here. It feels like there's a need, a social need, and so we, you know, I quit my job. We had some savings for a down payment and to see if it could turn into a real organization. And about 9 months later, and you saw, you know, kind of some of the craziness that ensued, it turns out Bill Gates and Google and all of these folks had been using the videos. It actually even turned out that during the financial crisis, the major news networks were watching the financial videos on Khan Academy before. There's actually a letter I got in the midst of the financial crisis from a gentleman, I won't say from which bank. Thank you so much for the videos on mortgage-backed securities. I now know what I do for a living. So it was very better late than never. But long story short, you know, when in 2008, when we set up Khan Academy with a mission of a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere, it is this grandiose ambition, and it was a bit of a delusional mission for a guy operating out of a walk-in closet. But the thinking then, and it was delusional then, and it maybe is still a little bit delusional, but less so now, and so I'm now sharing it more publicly, is this idea that we're definitely at an inflection point in history, you know, whatever you want to call it, the information revolution, et cetera, et cetera. And the more that we go into it, it's clear that this inflection point is more important to redefining civilization than we ever thought. It's at least as big as the Industrial Revolution. It's probably as big as the advent of the printing press, or maybe it'll even rival writing or agriculture in terms of changing the human condition. And anytime you have these inflection points in history, it introduces a whole new series of opportunities, but also a whole new series of problems. But then you have essentially oftentimes the social sectors, institutions, come into existence to take advantage of the opportunities to solve these new problems. And it was kind of a dream when it was a one-man organization, and still is a dream as we grow, that maybe Khan Academy could be a new type of institution for this inflection point. And the thought experiment that I like to challenge you know, our team at Khan Academy, I challenge our supporters, our volunteers, our users, is this idea that if you were to go back 400 years to Western Europe, and even then Western Europe was one of the most educated parts of the planet, you would see that about 20% of men could read and about 10% of women. And I would suspect that if you asked someone who could read, say a member of the clergy, what percentage of the population do you think is even capable of reading, even if they had a great education system? And they might tell you, well, if you had a great education system, maybe 40 or 50% of the population is just even capable of reading. The other 50% just not even mentally there. Now, 400 years later, we know that that's wildly pessimistic, that close to 100% of the population is capable of reading. And so as we fast forward to today, I like to ask myself and ask ourselves, what similar blinders do we have on today? If I were to ask you what percentage of the population is capable of understanding quantum physics, you might say, oh, maybe 10%. If I were to ask you what percentage of the population is capable of contributing to cancer research, you might say, okay, maybe 5 or 10%. But what if the answer is actually 80, 90, or even 100%? What would happen if we could actually increase by a factor of 10 the number of people who could contribute to society, who can be entrepreneurs, who could be inventors, who could be researchers, who could be artists? If we did that, it's the ultimate multiplier. It'll change what we are as a civilization. And so, you know, maybe I read too many science fiction books, but I feel like we are at a special time. And it feels like it's not going to happen overnight, but over the next, I would say, 5, 10, 50 years, Khan Academy, in conjunction with, frankly, all of y'all in the room, especially many of the other organizations that were recognized tonight, I think we have a realistic shot of taking this thing called education, this thing that has historically been scarce and expensive, but also the determinants between the haves and the have-nots, and make it more like shelter or clean drinking water and just a fundamental human right. Thank you.
What a special group of people. It's really been an honor to introduce everybody. Let's have one round of applause for all our nominators and all of our winners. If you're somebody who provides support for a great social entrepreneur, let us know so that we can have a group that we have to present to you next year. We need nominations. Please help us. And please come back next year, and we promise another great group. So see you next year. Thank you for all your help, and good evening.